Hello everyone and welcome to this new edition of Business Africa. I am Yasmina Alabasire. Here are this week's headlines. After an intense political crisis, Diomaye Faye is set to become Senegal's new president. An advocate of economic patriotism, Faye will have to face numerous challenges to revitalize the country's economy. The Africa 2050 survey by the Schwarzschild Institute reveals that Europe is the favored commercial partner of African economic leaders, well ahead of China, the United States and Russia. Using banana peels to make flour and wine is the feat achieved by a young Zimbabwean entrepreneur. His innovative technique could play a crucial role in addressing the food crisis in southern Africa. Senegal, which has gone through a major political crisis in recent months, has chosen its new president. Diomaye Faye, an economic patriotism enthusiast, has vowed to establish win-win partnerships. Will he successfully revitalize the country's economy?
The consequences of the political crisis of the last 3 years in Senegal have been heavily felt throughout the country. One of the sectors impacted was tourism, where 25 to 30% of bookings were cancelled at the start of the crisis in 2021. The confrontations, which were sometimes violent, have plunged Senegal into an era of uncertainty and limited its access to world markets. Key projects for the country, notably in the hydrocarbon sector, were affected. The crisis of international aid has also arisen. The IMF, which recently approved a $1.8 billion program, is counting on the growth of 8.8% in 2024. But future investments risk being postponed, which could jeopardize the West African country's growth prospects. President-elect Diomaye Faye, who has promised more local control of the economy and to renegotiate oil contracts, will likely face challenges in restoring investor confidence, stabilizing the economy, and keeping growth on course.
We're joined by Abdoulaye Ly, an economist and the director of the Club of Senegalese Investors. Thank you for your time, sir. Could you tell us what impact the latest political crisis has had on Senegal's economy?
To answer your question, it is important to understand that economists generally agree that in such a situation, the first observed reaction typically focused on the need for security and preservation. This is very damaging to sectors like transportation, which are emptied, and there is a lack of transport. Even the transporters themselves seek shelter to avoid damage. In tourism, there is also a significant decline. Tourists do not appreciate such unrest, and commerce suffers too. While waiting for more comprehensive surveys, we can consider that these are the sectors that are likely to be most affected, the primary victims of these tensions.
Moreover, the tensions affected foreign investments.
When these tensions erupted, I spent my time playing the firefighter and went to many countries to attract investors. I am now very relieved that this is finally coming to an end because we will get back to work. We will tap into our potential. After the rain comes sunshine, and I hope we are now entering a period of good weather in this regard.
What consequence will Diomaye Faye's election have, given his plans to create a new currency?
I did not feel the charisma that is being talked about. There is such a discussion about the creation of a new currency. What I observed was more of a new moratorium on currency, and that reassures me somewhat. That is needed because there is a growing popular demand in academic and research circles to assert that the CFA franc should not only be pegged to the euro, but to a more diversified basket of currencies, including the dollar, euro, British pound, yen, Chinese yuan, and even the Swiss franc. There is a need for a moratorium on the currency, but it should not be rushed or driven by populism.
In your view, what are some priority measures the future government should take to revive the economy?
Obstacles to investment must be removed simply. On a broader level, the rule of law must be respected. Factors constraining investment include land issues that the new regime has not been able to resolve in 12 years. Another area that needs serious attention is the bureaucratic red tape and an administrative, not business-oriented, leading to very slow procedures. There are also considerations about financing the economy, with a strong call for the Africanization of banks. African banks show a greater appetite for risk, being the major lender to the private sector, unlike foreign banks. The pharmaceutical sector also needs significant re-evaluation, since we are far from being self-sufficient, being dependent on imports by 97%. Revision of the pharmaceutical industry from the outdated tax laws of 1956 is crucial.
The IMF projected a growth rate of 8.8% for Senegal this year. Do you believe this target remains within reach?
Senegal could make up for the lost ground by improving labor productivity. However, this currently does not exist due to various factors hindering daily work and labor productivity. Furthermore, oil and gas exports might be postponed as we are not ready. There was a populist push to hasten things by the leaders, but now the new regime is considering renegotiating certain contracts. It is possible that we may experience disruptions and holes that will impact the projected growth of 8.8%. If we achieve 5%, we will be happy, given the current circumstances.
Abdoulaye Lee, thank you for answering our questions.
Thank you too, and see you soon.
Africa's preferred investors come from Europe. The Africa 2050 survey recently conducted by the Schwarzschild Institute among 300 African leaders has revealed so. 53% of respondents put the EU at the top of their list of preferred commercial partners for the decades to come.
Europe still remains Africa's most preferred investors. According to the Africa 2050 survey recently conducted by the Institute Schwarzschild, the study based on the opinions of some 300 African business leaders from 34 countries across the continent reveals that 53% of these leaders ranked the European Union as their top business choice. The report also ranked China as one of the leading investors in Africa, with only 16% of those surveyed consider it to be a main partner. A significant proportion of leaders surveyed consider China's presence essential, which underlines the complexity of relations between economic necessity and strategic circumstances. The United States is in third place at 11%. It is also worth noting that Russia is not particularly regarded as a trading partner of choice, garnering just 3% of leaders' interest in becoming their leading trading partner. Europe maintains its supremacy thanks mainly to Germany and France, which wins the approval of 69% and 61% of respondents respectively. Spain came third with 16% of the vote, ahead of Italy and Belgium. The EU plans to consolidate its presence in Africa with its ambitious €150 billion global gateway program, posing as a serious alternative to China's new Silk Roads. The survey also reveals the dissatisfaction of African decision makers. They express a pressing need for reform. A majority of 60% call for immediate change to enhance the attractiveness of their countries.
In Zimbabwe, an entrepreneur has developed a technique to transform banana peels into flour, wine and oil. The innovation opens the door to new economic prospects and could play a crucial role in addressing the food crisis in southern Africa.
Located some 300 kilometers from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, a young entrepreneur from motorist Wonder Valley has found an innovative way to use banana peels to produce flour, wine and oil. These peels, often considered useless waste, are now a source of income.
I've been in the banana industry since 2007, so a lot of things were happening in terms of grades of bananas which were left behind. So a farmer could lose something like 30% of his harvest. That's where we started to process these bananas to create more value for the farmers, so that at the end of the day, the farmer gets paid for his A, B, and even his last grade.
The entrepreneur follows a simple procedure: collecting, cleaning, cutting bananas in the field, then solar drying them and finally shipping them to factories for packaging. As the majority of his customers are international, this initiative contributes to bringing foreign currency into the community and the country.
I think in 2 months to come, we'll be at a production capacity which will service both the local and the export market. So we are working together with the community where we are incapacitating them by giving them dryers, and we train them and they dry for Nezox brands. At the end of the day, the farmers are getting paid for the dried bananas that they bring to Nezox brands.
Zimbabwe has a tradition of exporting food products. As an organization, we are promoting the export of organic foods. We will also be certifying some of these young SMEs so that they will be able to get access into the niche but high rewarding markets.
Southern Africa is facing a food crisis due to El Nino. Entrepreneurs like Brightner Zumba hope that initiatives such as this will help to alleviate the potential crisis.
That wraps this episode of Business Africa. You can watch it again on africanews.com and on all our platforms. I'll see you soon.